Annoyed that I'm wearing a black jacket with a navy hat? Complain about it in our comments section after you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all socials. Also, super follow me. Out of breath.
Who's ready to update some tournament? We got to update some tournament here. We got to get people caught up. We've got to advance the weekend if it's going to be another weekend of craziness. Dollar Shave Club is the sponsor on our March Sadness tournament. FAU, South Florida's got 2 teams in the men's tournament. 2. FAU is one of them. FAU is represented in our Looks Like tournament by
Andrew looks like he switched from coffee to a mushroom-based tea, and it absolutely changed his life for the better.
Still around as a 9 seed, but in that bracket, teams beaten by FAU, transitive property around FAU, anyone who lost. Number 1, Purdue, was beat by my father's alma mater, Furley Dickinson. Purdue was a number 1 seed as?
Kirk Cousins looked like JCPenney.
Big upset there.
Big one. Number 8, Memphis, represented by?
Daniel Snyder looks like the doomed branch manager in a Jason Statham movie who can't remember the combo to the vote.
It's excellent.
That's really good.
It's really good. Stumpy in nature. Yes, he's fiddling with the keys, and he's very nervous. Fairleigh Dickinson, 16 seed, repped by?
Mike McDaniel looked like a college student on a full-ride scholarship for esports.
What a run.
In the West, Stugotz.
It was a game.
It was not a game. They also had the play-in game, and
that's right.
they beat the number 1 seed.
1.5 games.
Someone on our TikTok channel, by the way, follow us on TikTok, was like, they had to win their conference tournament to get in. They're a small school. False. They didn't even win their conference tournament.
Correct.
There was Brenda, Letitia, Linda, Felicia.
You're having a little trouble there getting Johnny Most for the lyrics. UCLA, Stugotz. This, thankfully, is still in the tournament.
Mike Budenholzer looks like the high school geometry teacher who just realized he pooped himself in front of the class and now will forever be known as Mr. Poopenholzer. Poopenholzer. Poopenholzer.
Dawn, LaShawn, Inez, and Alicia.
Poopenholzer.
I think your Johnny Most is falling apart.
It is.
Yeah.
I can't reset with bird tails and all.
Poopenholzer.
Rough on the voice. You okay?
Poopenholzer.
Number 7, Northwestern, is gone from the tournament.
Jim Harbaugh looks like a casket salesman.
There really was a bias for the short ones. There was. The committee likes the short
The
ones.
delivery's good.
Witty's fault.
Number 10, Boise State is gone, and people really like this one because Daniel Jones really does look like this.
Daniel Jones looks like the blank template for a human being.
UNC Asheville is out. A 15 seed is gone from the tournament. That means that Larrañaga is still in the tournament, but this is not.
Jim Larrañaga looks like he just raised his hand at the Genius Bar and asked how to Twitter something from his iPod.
We've got a little more to update here, Stugotz.
All right.
Because the games are starting this weekend. Look at Amin. He's broken because his Johnny Most it was terrible, fell apart. It didn't have any stamina. And look at it.
There's a Steal My Bird. Teresa, Monica, Sharon, Nikki.
Pooping.
You really do need the runway of There's a Steal My Bird.
Alvin Stole the Ball. Lisa, Veronica, Karen, and Vicky.
Pooping.
It gets him going.
Pooping.
If you want to stay there and keep, I will work Johnny Most if he's got some material.
Cookie, well, I met her at an ice cream parlor.
He's back.
Number 3, Gonzaga is still in the tournament. That means this is still in the tournament.
LaMelo Ball looks like the kid in a Mountain Dew commercial that is amazed that his grandmother can skateboard after just one sip of cold red.
It's good. It's a good one. Thankful that it's still.
LaMelo Ball looks like the kid in a Mountain Dew commercial that is amazed that his grandmother can skateboard after just one sip of cold red.
I saw the whole commercial in my brain. I saw LaMelo. I saw his granny kind of come up, take a sip of the code red, label out towards the camera, and then like the stunt double come in and do like a half pipe 370, whatever the hell it's called. And he just like, whoa.
And you can see it on his cartoon face. TCU, a 6 seed, gone from the tournament.
Carson Wentz looked like the boyfriend of that one girl from your small town high school who is constantly posting, going to dinner with this cutie on her social media story.
Number 11, Arizona State is gone from the tournament. And Stugotz, I don't know physically if the audience knows how boxy Neil Everett of ESPN fame is, but here he is as Arizona State gone from the tournament.
Neil Everett looked like your buddy who moved to Denver and wears those shoes with the individual toes.
I mean, he might actually be that guy.
Boxy is really a funny way to describe somebody.
Boxy. Wow.
Do you guys ever wear those toe socks?
No.
Oh, they're the worst. I was wearing a pair yesterday.
If they're the worst, why do you wear them?
Honestly, it's a long story, and if I told the story, you would be required to play the white woman sounder like 6 times in a row because it was a Pilates-related situation.
Pilates?
I mean, we've got some time.
No.
I already tried to find it as soon as you went individual
It's already
toe
been
socks.
played.
It was already going to get played no matter what. So you mean to tell me the story gets whiter?
No.
I
Hard no.
thought you did Pilates barefoot. Right?
No, Roy.
No,
Oh,
that's
my
yoga,
God.
Roy. Come on, what are you doing?
Tanya, Diane, Lori, and Carla.
They were in my class.
Excellent timing, everyone. Grand Canyon is gone from the tournament. 14 seed, gone.
Jay Cutler looked like the son who cuts the grass terribly on purpose so his dad never asked him to do it again.
Marina, Selena, Katrina, Sabrina.
It's falling apart.
About 3 Kims.
He needs a bird part.
He needs
There goes bird tails about.
You need it's lubricant.
Right
It starts you up.
It's lubricant. You need it, and I need you to understand this about
3 kids.
about the character. The character requires some lubricant because he keeps falling
So did the
apart.
3 Kims.
Stugotz, congratulations.
That sounded like Gordon Soley. That was great.
We've gotten this far in the show, and I have not congratulated Stugotz on what is a majestic day for him, the reporting that his idol, Chris Mad Dog Russo, has turned an audition into a paycheck. ESPN may be cutting costs all over the place,
But now a doggy.
but they're going to extend Mad Dog because we need more opinions from an old white guy screaming and yelling about the 60s Celtics of Johnny Most.
That's right. I can't believe I told Mike Shure that I enjoyed his program with the colored fella on it. I just thought about that again right now for some reason.
My God.
Stugotz, congratulations.
I would love to hear
Thank you.
Johnny Most describe what he thinks the good place is.
Johnny Most is dying right now.
He's having some trouble here. He's coughed up on the floor. There's water all over. We cannot get out of these studios fast enough. People are being shot in the streets. Amin is legitimately disgusted by the entirety of our environment.
Oh, man, by the way, it's enough. It's going to sound crazy. Enough with the shootings, please. Like,
Yeah.
I mean-
no, let's put that up on social. Enough with the shootings, please.
Yes.
Dash, Amin El Hassan.
I just, like,
Stop shooting people.
oh, especially around here.
Well, but I don't think people. It's really close to Stugotz. It is next door. That
I know.
that a tourist group was being brought through here on one of those Art Deco tours, and there's a fire hose that is pouring the blood over the sidewalk. It's right in our. It's right here.
It's right there. It's literally right there. If you're wondering, oh, are they in Miami Beach? No, I'm talking about right in front of the Clevelander to the left, basically.
After we've already, somebody who works in the lobby was already shot and killed, not but a couple of months ago.
That was the night I was working here, and I decided I was going to stay and do Cinephobe from here, and then I just got tired. I was like, no, I'm just going to go to my hotel room. And literally an hour later, I think that's when that shooting happened. And so to see the news from last week, I was like, honestly, I really felt like, when are we moving? Like, how many more times do I have to do this?
One of the issues here, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this, but because Miami is growing so fast and stupid, can't afford to live here anymore. Like, the prices are through the roof, and all there is cranes everywhere. Everyone is flooded into Miami, and now this space around us is legitimately dangerous. There will be they can't put a state of emergency curfew in this week because this week the drugs come in with Ultra. This week, if people hit the floor, it'll be overdosing. It won't be assassinations in the street, which is what you had last weekend. It's not fights, Stugotz. It's a violence that I don't even understand it when I tell you the idea that you're going to kill somebody and immediately be caught and lose your freedom. It's a flippancy and just to put bullets in someone while they're on the ground like they're in the movies.
Not moving. The guy was face down on the ground, not moving, and the other dude stood over him and let off 3, 4, 5. I'm like you said, Dan, there is no escape route here, one, but two is like, I think you got him. I'm pretty sure you got him. Like, I don't, the need to go over the top with zero, I don't even know, humanity is the only word I can think of. It was shocking, like, to see that happen somewhere that is a fairly nice to look at place, right? Somewhere that you would say, it always boggles my mind, like when I go to a bar or something and people get in a fight and I'm like, you left your house upset enough to get into a fight? Like, look at all this fun stuff we're doing here. Like, just have fun. See, take this to a higher level. Like, you left your house today thinking, I'm going to take somebody's life. Because that's not self-defense, right? That's not like, oh, I had to get him before he got me. You shot the dude, he's laying on the ground, and you decided, in for a penny, in for a dollar. And that is such an insane thought process, not the least of which, what you brought up, Dan, is like, you're not going to get away. There's a zillion cops here, everywhere. What did you think? You were going to run? It's so crazy. And I know, oh, man, this must sound like a broken record, but it is insane to me that people are so flippant with life, not because it threatens yours, not because of any sort of, not that there's ever a good reason, but a tangible reason, but just because, right? I had a bad day. I'm going to walk to school and shoot everybody. This guy said this thing to me. I'm going to shoot him 6 times in the back. Like, it just, where are you mentally to be at a place where that's the solution in your mind?
But to your earlier point, Dan, congratulations to Dog.
And just steal my bird.
I was made aware today of something that I did not know, Stugotz. Rick Ross, the famed Miami rapper who lives a giant life on social media, I thought that life was in Miami, and I was always wondering when it would be on the property that he has that is very ornate and is a farm for tax reasons. I thought that was a lot of land somewhere in Miami, and I was always wondering, where is that? Where is that place where Rick Ross lives? And I was informed today, I did not know this, that Rick Ross lives at Evander Holyfield's house in Georgia, a house that I thought, when Evander Holyfield built it as heavyweight champion, and I read the details about the house, I thought this man will never be able to sell this house to anybody, but it's been bought by Rick Ross.
Yeah, Dan, you said he lives at Evander Holyfield's house. No, he lives at his house. He bought Evander Holyfield.
It used to be Evander's, yes, but you had him living in Davie.
I did think it was around here somewhere. I did not know where it was, but I thought it was here. And his evidently he's got buffalo. And Rick Ross's buffalo are bothering the neighbors because Rick Ross doesn't totally have control of the buffalo. And now the neighbors, I did not know that Evander Holyfield had neighbors. This is such a giant property that he built in the middle of nowhere.
I've got some numbers on it. It's actually in Fayetteville County, Georgia. It's 235 acres. So the buffalo had to go kind of a long way to get to the neighbor's house. It's got a 45,000 square foot house on the actual property. The pool has 350,000 gallons of water. There's 109 rooms. Yeah.
What?
Among the 109 rooms, there's 12 bedrooms and 21 bathrooms. And Rick only paid $5.8 for it, which is you can get a condo, I think, down the street for $5.8.
Studio.
And the shower's in the kitchen.
Oh, you saw that too?
Only in Dade.
That's in
I
Hialeah.
sure did.
That's in Hialeah.
to quote my dad on something like this, 45,000 square foot house, 230 some odd acres, too much house. That's my dad's favorite move.
Good take.
It's a lot of house.
Whenever you use like anything grandiose or whatever, he says like, no, it's too
But
much.
Tony, you said go through some of these numbers again. You said 109
rooms. Yeah, 12 bedrooms, 21 bathrooms, but it has a theater that can seat like 150 people. It had just rooms. Like I don't know what's in the rooms. There's just a lot of rooms.
What another 80 rooms?
So what you're telling me is that there are 12 rooms and then another 97 rooms in the house that aren't rooms.
Just
There's a
in
bowling
case,
alley.
Dan. Yeah.
There's an outdoor pool, an indoor pool, a hot tub.
How many foyers?
Look at here.
How many studies?
11 foyers. 12
And
studies.
he got it for less than $6 million
Yeah.
because what did Evander Holyfield build it for? Because I never thought that house would sell. We talked the other day about Michael Jordan's house, the price always going down because of how big a house he built in a place that shouldn't have a big house. I did not think that the reason I thought Evander Holyfield's house would never sell is because you're not going to sell 109 rooms to anyone there who wants to spend millions of dollars on it.
Also, Fayetteville County, Georgia, isn't exactly a booming metropolis. It's not Paris, right?
$17,000 a month on electricity expenses for the house.
Yeah, it's not Rome, Georgia.
Or Cairo, Georgia.
But how much did Evander build that for? Do we know?
I don't know what he built it for, but he sold it to the bank for $8
And then Rick Ross bought it in foreclosure.
for $5.8 million from the bank.
$5.8 million.
The auction started at $2.5 million.
And his buffalo are just roaming all over the place. I wanted to talk to you about the latest news. Ja Morant is coming back, and he went to counseling for a while. And, maybe people laugh at the idea of this, but he's talking about stress and stress management, which I don't know that young people get coached for, how much their life is about to change when they come into the millions and the fame, and nothing prepares you for it, really. You've told the stories here of guys who get to the league and just haven't culturally acclimated to what the league is, that their previous life comes with them, and the things they didn't learn or did learn come with them, and they might not be kids, but Ja Morant is very young and I don't want to infantilize him, but he is very young to be running an economy and an empire and playing basketball.
If you remember when the story first broke,
Johnny Most has killed his voice.
Really has.
Start again with the lubricant.
Bird.
With
Okay.
the lubricant.
Okay.
But wait, you want Johnny Most thoughts on
On
this?
Ja
Because
Morant.
I do
I
not.
don't.
I
want
want
to
to
know.
know his thoughts on
I don't
this.
know.
Sorry,
No,
I need the
you
blue.
could go to First Take for that, or you could go. I'm sorry, to Skip Bayless. Right? Skip Bayless is now. If you've noticed this one, he is just going after stereotype stuff on Ja Morant as the evolution of the 70-year-old guy on television who can play for clicks and just do stereotype stuff to Ja Morant.
So when we first started talking about Ja and these incidents, right, because of the Washington Post article that came out, the thing that I said was, I don't know if he knows how famous he is, right? He still thinks, it's not like, oh, he's running with a bad crowd, whatever. It's literally, he still thinks he's just Ja that, some people know who I am, but for the most part, I can live my life unfettered.
Ja show up at the mall with 9 friends because mom's been disrespected.
And think that this won't get anywhere. Again, it's this idea that like we can do this and leave and it won't get anywhere, right? He kind of mentioned it. He's like, when it sit down with Jalen Rose, well, I have to be better because, I have to realize when Josh shows up, that means something. I'm like, yeah, but that was the disconnect I wondered if he was going through, and it seems like it is. We had a great conversation on Basketball Illuminati this week. The episode dropped today with Chris Herring, who writes for Sports Illustrated, and he wrote specifically about the concept of mental health as being the new unassailable, infallible defense, right? And I said to Chris, when I was growing up, this is going to sound like old people thing, but like when we were growing up, the big thing was when you got caught doing something, you say, the devil made me do it. Remember that? Like, the devil made me do it. And haha, whatever. Now the new version of that is mental health, right? Because if you throw it out there, no one's allowed to question it, right? I'm not questioning Ja's mental health state or not. I'm just saying that seems like a very, very convenient defense that you can't poke holes at. And then on top of it, you say, well, I went to counseling. And in a week, you're cured. Everything's great. We're good now. Like, it just feels.
He figured it all out.
Well, you know.
7 days.
Well, instead of, and we can be cynical about this because of course not, right, Stugotz? Whatever was ailing Ja before this is not cured now because he did 7 days of introspection and stopped his life for a second and learned all the things a young person needs to learn about a life in 7 days. But let's just go to the start of this because Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan tried to break open this door, and this is what it looks like when they're like, okay, men, we're going to talk about our feelings. Men, we're going to go to therapy. Men, we're going to talk about how we're weak inside, strong on the outside, but we're going to talk about things. And we're really going to get into these soulful, emotional places on mental health and where's your anxiety and Kevin Love, panic attacks on the court. Before we get to the analyzation of Ja Morant, I would just say to you that sports and all of us right now are at a very rudimentary, crude place with learning about how to deal with any of this. Like just
getting better though, but we've always been there.
No, but so primal still.
No.
Yes, getting better, Stugotz, but it's what I'm telling you, and this is the part that I want people to understand about like where we're headed in sports. He comes from an executive background. Get your ass on the court and play, period. Don't give me the excuse of whatever. Get on the court and play. I don't want to hear about anything else. And a crude manifestation of mental health awareness doesn't fit with that. You're asking executives to now accept a whole bunch of things about guys missing long amounts of time. Andrew Wiggins has been gone a long amount of time because what about your mental health am I supposed to care about as the employer?
I think the bigger issue, Dan, isn't that, right? By the way, before DeRozan and Kevin Love was Ron Artest, who won the championship and the first.
But it felt real and genuine, to your point, because those guys were the first ones to do it. Now it feels like a crutch for a lot of guys.
Well, it's not just because they're the first guys to do it, but for them it had been something that was ongoing, right? Like we didn't know Ron Artest was seeing a therapist until he said, "I'm seeing a therapist. She's helped me with a lot of my anger issues and all that."
She travels with me.
Yeah. So same thing with DeRozan and Kevin Love. This wasn't something like something bad happened. Oh yeah, it's because of this. I've got to go see someone, and then I'm cured. It's not like an upset stomach or a sore knee. It's a very serious issue, and so when we're allowed to use it flippantly, it takes away from people who are truly struggling, ongoing struggling, working on it, and second of all, it puts us in a place where there's an immunity, right? Like. I don't get to question it, which I at some point, I think, Dan, that's the problem. You're talking about guys missing time. Andrew Wiggins is missing time. It seems to be a pretty serious thing.
He's missed a lot of time.
A teammate was quoted anonymously saying he's dealing with real shit, and that's all we know, and everyone's respecting the privacy of that.
But I mean, what's unfair is we don't know. I'm with you. I see where you're headed, but it's unfair to Ja Morant because we don't know that he's not dealing with it, you know?
Yes and no, but again, Stugotz, it's convenient when it happens because something, like you got in trouble, basically, because you got in trouble. And by the way, it's convenient that it got cleared up. Oh, I got in trouble, and then I did it, and we're good, right? Like, it just feels very going through the motions to check boxes and to say, see, I have atoned.
Well, this was part of Deshaun Watson's agreement with the NFL, right? That he had to, like, go to therapy, and there was a report that things were going really well after that. And so I think, like, on a case-by-case basis, you have to look at the entire situation because maybe there is a mental health thing there. Maybe he's not coping well with being in the NBA, but I think you also have to look at what he did and the harm that he's caused and whether he's being, held accountable to it. And those things cannot necessarily be a contradiction with one another, right? Like you can have some sort of mental health issue and be like, all right, I'm getting treatment for that. But at the same time, like you made bad decisions and that doesn't necessarily excuse your bad decision making if you knew the decisions were bad.
So that was the thing. Again, when we talked about this, when it first started coming about, we talked about Royce White. And I remember I told you guys, like, Royce White has a real condition. Also, he's an asshole. And so what we could not get into was the idea of allowing someone's asshole behavior to be immunized by his condition, which is real, but not the cause of the asshole behavior. Similarly with Ja, maybe he does have mental health issues that need addressing, whatever. But that's not what happened here. What happened here is you were a dick and you thought you were untouchable. And that's why.
But this stuff is so. When I tell you that this is complicated, I will just tell you that there's someone I love very deeply, who has dealt with bipolar stuff that I cannot separate. Where does the sickness start and the asshole begin? Where does I don't recognize. I'm talking to the same person, a person I love, and I don't recognize them because of the spectrum on mental health that we're talking about here. We're talking about, this is such a broad topic, and sports is just getting to it. Yes, you can dismiss it as, those are excuses, and I can tell you, man, a 23-year-old kid. And again, don't want to infantilize him, but what tools do I have to give that person so they can deal with, hey, you're a superstar now. You get it all. You get fame and money, and you could choose to either go to the strip club and throw $50,000 on the floor or work on yourself because
Which, by
there's
the way,
all sorts of stuff here you can learn.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that part.
Right.
What's wrong is he assaulted someone, allegedly, and was filmed with a gun, which is a bad PR look for the NBA. Although, politicians do it, and it's part of their campaign messages in this country as well. So there's a little bit of a double standard there.
That part's amazing to watch.
But I think that there's no indication what you're talking about with your friend Dan. There's no indication any of that's going on. So we have to kind of just look at.
Oh, I'm just saying he's saying stress and counseling and mental health.
And he is young, like you said. He's not a child, but he's young, and young people make mistakes. And I think it's fair to have empathy for him and be he's going through a tough thing. I think it's also fair to be skeptical when people use this as a shield, because what I talked about this with the Formula One thing a few weeks ago. There was an episode where one of the teams got caught cheating, and the team principal, Christian Horner, was like, everyone needs to stop accusing us of cheating because in the era of mental health, it's really affecting, the members of our team. And a lot of eye rolls were made because it is used sometimes as a shield.
I'm not
But
saying
that doesn't mean it's not a real thing too.
Oh my God.
Classic horny.
What happened?
He's married to Jerry Hallwell.
Oh, Ginger Spice.
How'd you know?
Roy fed it into my brain.
A little pop culture fun fact for you.
Stugotz, we live at the center here of DraftKings and gambling, and you have seen throughout sports, you've seen gambling money flood the market. The NFL suspends Calvin Ridley for a benign parlay bet that he made because they're going to try and keep the walls up. Gambling will take all your money, but please don't bring some of those things over here that make it feel like anyone on our fields is compromised in any way. The NBA was able to disgrace Tim Donaghy, a known liar and convicted felon. They were able to successfully paint him as a rogue referee. But refereeing all over the place is questionable, and it's questionable beyond, Stugotz, just, those guys are bad at it and those were bad calls. You can wonder fairly whether we are more likely than ever to have referees and integrities compromised in sports by referees or officials being contaminated, and it's not just incompetence. It's not Angel Hernandez being protected by a strong umpires union. And Fred VanVleet came out recently and made some decisions about, I'm going to take the cost of this, which will be substantive. It'll be tens of thousands of dollars. I'm not allowed to do this, but the officiating was so bad and so personal in this game that VanVleet, who's been more outspoken as he's gotten money, but has never been quite this, says this about the officiating.
I mean, I don't mind. I'll take a fine. I don't really care. I thought, Ben Taylor was terrible tonight. I thought that on most nights, couple of the, out of the three, there's one or two that just the game up, and it's been like that a couple games in a row. Denver was tough, obviously. You come out tonight, you're competing pretty hard. The third quarter, I get a bullshit tech, changes the whole dynamic of the game, changes the whole flow of the game. And, most of the refs are trying hard. I like a lot of the refs are trying hard. They're pretty fair. They communicate well. And then you got the other ones who just want to be dicks and just kind of the game up. Nobody's coming to see that shit. They come to see the players. And I think we're losing a little bit of the fabric of what the NBA is and was, and it's been disappointing this season. You could look up, most of my texts this year have been with Ben Taylor officiating. So at a certain point as a player, you feel it's personal, and it's never a good place to be. That's not why we lost tonight. We got outplayed, but it definitely makes it tougher to overcome.
I think he was fined $35,000 for that. It seems light. It does. I mean, he let it fly.
Okay,
he did.
But the news that's come off of this, and Tom Haberstroh of Meadowlark Media, he has been more thorough than most, because this is a shady sewers, Stugotz, of these games can be decided. All of the Heat's games are 5-point games, and all of them can be corrupt. Like, it's not that hard to actually make as much contact as there is in that sport, as fast as the bodies are. And now there's news, and tell me what happened here that Haberstroh is saying that Ben Taylor has actually now, weeks later, there's been, it's not punishment, but
Demoted. That's what Tom said. And, you know, the thing that happened, I remember before that incident, one of these incidents where there was a ref and someone got upset. Maybe it was the tossing of the kid. What's the kid's name that went to Florida State that plays for Toronto right now?
Barnes.
Scotty Barnes, thank you. Scotty Barnes got tossed against Denver because, in the words of Scott Foster, who did the tossing, he questioned the integrity of the game, right? And people were saying...
And all he did was scream on a call. He screamed, you guys cheated.
Cheating, yeah. Which, again...
You can't scream.
Well, you can't... And he said, I was just talking to myself. And I'm like, well, no, you can't just yell whatever you want and say I was talking to myself.
Cheating the game.
But the reality is, Dan...
Who says that
That would have been great if he just shouted at this guy, you guys are cheating! And then just, like, let it trail. The game. Spiritually.
The idea that people said, well, these refs don't get fined, they don't get suspended. And I was like, well, yeah, they do. You just don't know about it because the league doesn't announce it. And so this is an example of that, where Ben Taylor was, when they probably went back and looked at the calls. And I know we did this on Basketball Illuminati. I think VanVleet at the time had 9 technical fouls, and 3 of them were from Ben Taylor. And then there was like 1, 2, and then a couple of ones throughout. So, yeah, there was consequences and repercussions. It's just they don't announce it now because Tom is plugged in, and Tom does, as you said, the most thorough job, I would say, of anybody when it comes to NBA referees, and it goes a lot deeper than what kind of calls they give.
But the NBA did a very successful job, Stugotz, when they made it. Tim Donaghy was guilty, but they really made it feel for everybody like it was a rogue referee.
But you know what, Dan? Kind of was. And that's
we don't know that.
That's the crazy
We think it was.
So Sean Patrick Griffin wrote this book called Gaming the Game. We had him on when the Donaghy documentary came out on Netflix. We had him on Basketball Illuminati, and we poked a million holes in this documentary that was, quite frankly, very lazy in the way it went about things. Because their whole thing was, oh, well, Tim is willing to sit down, and he's willing to say, implicate, there are other referees that are all doing this. But the reality is, when you looked at Tim Donaghy's record as a bettor, he was excellent at games that he was calling. When he gave picks for games that he wasn't calling, those picks were terrible, to the point where the guys that he was involved with told him, don't even bother giving us those other picks anymore.
Stick to your games.
Stick to your games, right? The example he gave in that documentary.
That's how Stugotz of Donaghy is that?
Yeah.
Oh, the ones I can control, I've got a skill. I can do this all over the league because when I fix the games, I know how to see more than others.
I'm fixing all of them.
I can fix all the games. I'm amazed. I'm an amazing visionary.
So this is my favorite part. In the documentary, he talks about a game between the Knicks and the Heat. And Courtney Kirkland hates Pat Riley, but he loves Isaiah Thomas. And so they made it so, and lo and behold, the Knicks beat the Heat and they covered the spread, right? Well, Tim Donaghy was one of the refs in there. And Tom went back and watched the game and tabulated the calls. And he's right. There were a bunch of calls made in the Knicks' favor against the Heat's favor. But what he didn't mention was he was the one making those calls. Courtney Kirkland actually called more calls in the Heat's favor. But because Tim Donaghy was giving more calls to the Knicks' favor, they were able to manipulate the line. So he's right, a ref did do it, but he blamed some other guy as opposed to himself. So Dan, it's funny.
Stugotz is strong and dominant.
No, it's so great because I'm imagining myself like I'm 6-0 on games where I control the outcome, and now I feel so good.
Yeah,
I'm picking all of them.
I'm telling the mafia, hey, you guys, I got the insider secrets nobody's got. And the insider secret is buy a ref.
Preferably me.
Yes, I'm available, but
I'd offer myself for a late game.
Does anyone care?
I'll do the 7 o'clock and the 10 o'clock.
You doing 2 a days, guys?
I wonder if anyone cares though, because Calvin Ridley, the NFL fell on his head, man. This is
there was some reporting on Calvin Ridley. I know you called it a benign parlay, but there was some additional reporting on that there was more than just the one that got out or just what was reported.
Regardless, I've got to assume that people who are competitive, who are gambling on planes, they're addictive personalities, compulsive personalities, action personalities. I've got to assume that throughout sports, it would strain all reason to say there aren't people who are addicted to gambling in sports. Like they'd be addicted anywhere in real life. Major athletes who need competition need to be. Hell, Phil Mickelson. That seems obvious that's a gambling that's a gambling problem. And I just think as all of this comes to sports and it's so much money, there's no way to actually keep the walls up around this stuff. It doesn't matter how vigilant you are.
Is that too much to ask to say, hey, you can gamble, just don't gamble on this? Right? Like, because that's
your own sport, your own team.
You can't. I don't think NBA referees are allowed to step foot in Vegas casinos. Yeah. I don't think they're allowed to go in. I don't think they have the same rights as the rest of us when it comes to gambling.
Some of those rules have changed, I believe, recently. Don't quote me on that, but
they can't pull the slots. I mean,
that would be crazy. Every sporting event in the next 5 years is in Las Vegas. That would be crazy if you have to go to Vegas and you just have to stay at like the Holiday Inn 30 minutes away from the strip.
Way
and
off
you can't
the strip.
leave.
Benign is a relative term, but it was reported initially that Calvin Ridley spent $1,300. He put out a tweet saying $1,500. It was actually closer after the documents were obtained and reviewed by the Sports Handle show. That it was closer to $4,000.
And that is a difference, but you tell me guys are gambling that on a team plane, I'm shrugging my shoulders, over a hand of cards on the way to Phoenix.
And it also should be noted that all 6 wagers involving the Falcons were graded as losses.
Antoine
sucked at it too.
Antoine Walker also seems to have had a gambling problem, ran up a considerable debt in Las Vegas. Yep. There is no way to actually protect sports here, come close to protecting sports. All you could do is the optics of trying to appear maximum vigilant when you do catch somebody.
Just make sure when you bet.
It's speeding.
Do so responsibly. And on the DraftKings Sportsbook app.
Yeah. Bet responsibly. Shout out to Fat Joe.
Joey Crack.